We're going to record the whole presentation so that it can be, people who cannot make it, we're going to share it with them. You want to get started?
Sure. So I'm Kurt Gervich. I'm an environmental planner, an associate professor here at SUNY Plattsburgh, and I've been working with the Middlebury School of the Environment for the past 4 summers, including last summer in China. I teach classes in sustainability and environmental leadership and environmental planning, and really love our program at the Middlebury School of the Environment because it's such an interesting way of teaching and interesting classes, as well as the adventure of exploring environmental transitions and transformations in China.
Right. Why do you move to China?
Because China offers such cool opportunities for studying some of the biggest environmental problems, environmental challenges facing the planet today. In scale of population and urban development and rural development and agriculture, but also the scale and significance of biodiversity in Yunnan province. It's a pretty amazing place to be.
Yeah. So my name is Liu Xie. I'm also associate professor here at SUNY Plattsburgh. This is actually the first time that I got on the program with Kurt and many other faculty that we had to go to China and bring 19 American college students to China. I'm an urban geographer, and my focus is urban transportation, urban environment, air pollution, sustainability issues in China. So I'm urban, he's rural. We're the co-directors of this Middlebury School of Environment. I'm trying to bring not only the students to see China, but also see the differences between urban and rural environmental issues in China and how we could potentially approach to the solutions for these challenges. So today's the purpose of today's webinar is that we want to go through, first of all, I'm going to talk based on this PowerPoint slide. It's something I put together of the observations I had during the summer, this past summer in China, in the sites that we took the students to visit. And then Kurt is going to go ahead and show us a Adobe Spark project he put together by observing the students looking at these issues and how they approach their interest in different environmental issues and how they look at the problems. I think quite different from my perspective. So I'm going to start with mine. Anything you want to say before I?
There are a handful of people on the webinar now. So if you have a question, I think there's a way for you to let us know that you have a question, and we can unmute your microphone so that you can ask your question and everybody will hear.
Oh, I think I can raise your hand.
Yeah, I think there's a way for you to raise your hand.
So we can unmute you, or you can put your questions or comments in the chat box.
Yes. We're going to turn our video camera off so that we can share our screen and so you can see the presentation that Leo put together. And there we go.
Okay, so I'm gonna turn off the video now.
Enjoy.
I'm hoping you can see the screen. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and start. So this is a picture from where we were staying in Dali that shows very good environment. Air pollution is not a major issue there. But it's a major issue in many other places in China. So I'm going to go ahead and start with a kind of a common thing that people would think of China when they think about environmental issues is that the air pollution and people walking around in masks. Some of them are pretty, I don't know, it's pretty heavy, even lab-looking mask. And cities, it cannot even see things in cities, and that's particularly bad for a lot of metropolitan areas. On top of that is that there was a lot of research and study about the health result of the air pollution. China is one of the world's #1 countries with the highest number of people or death incidents that's resulted from air pollution. Here's just one example from data that put together by University of Washington. But China is, the environmental challenge is way beyond air pollution. There are food safety issues, there are water pollution issues, there are soil contamination issues, just so many of them that in a way that's the reason why we moved to China, is to at least look at some of the issues in a way that's from a perspective that's quite different from people who actually live there. Here's a map that shows the contamination of soil. If you look at this part, this is Yunnan province. This is where we brought the students in Kunming, the capital of it, and Dali, which is the rural area of it. So if you look at the contamination, soil contamination issues, Yunnan is fairly bad compared to the others. But if you ask any Chinese living in China now, if you think of a province that has relatively good environment and less air pollution, places you want to visit, they always think of Yunnan. That's because Yunnan, their main issue is more soil contamination, and related to that is water pollution. A lot of people don't really see it, not as visible as air pollution, where you have to wear a mask, you can't really see anything, and buses get lost because of the smog, and they cannot see the road. So if I move on, we'll zoom into Yunnan province, and I found a really good hydrological map about the province. So the province is very special because it's at the southeast part of China, right by the Himalayas. The high elevation, I think average over 6,000 feet. So they have a lot of different ecosystems, environment, resources. It's also the country, I think one of the provinces was the best water resources. So they have a lot of hydropower plants, and they tap the hydroelectricity a lot in the province. They're also very ethnic diverse. Of all the 56 ethnicities in China, 26 of them live in this province. So when the students were exploring a lot of environmental issues, some of them actually got distracted by the cultural diversity that they saw there, which I think is also a very good thing. So here, if you look at the map, there's a lot of kind of main rivers with some of the data that shows how much the hydropower has been tapped. I want to direct your attention to Kunming, which is the capital of the province, which is the urban area with a major lake called Dianchi Lake. It's the province's largest freshwater lake, high elevation, used to be very clean and nice environment. A lot of luxury houses were built around it. The second place we also have our students there, Dali, which is a rural, relatively rural community. We stay here in Xizhou. And there's also a major lake here called Erhai Lake. So overall, the Xizhou place is more rural, but Erhai Lake is a very important water resources for many communities and villages around the lake. The last one we went to is called Fuxian Lake. This is the site where you could really experience the Cambrian explosion with a lot of fossils. If you really go look for a lot of fossils from that time, we were able to spend our last day, closing day, right by the Fuxian Lake, but we didn't get around to dig for fossils. Potentially, that's going to be a very interesting activities we might do in the future with the students. So these are the three places we went to. I'm going to start with Kunming and then move on to Dali in terms of water pollution to show you how bad the situation is. Here's picture of Dianchi Lake. Left is before, which has always been considered a really nice place to be, and this is what they look like now. Because of the heavy water pollution, the eutrophication situation in the lake is very severe. They even gained the nickname of Dianchi Green because of how bad the situation is. If you look at this comparison of picture, it's almost like green paint.
Yeah, that does not look like water.
It's not water, but it's very, it's actually terrifying to look at pictures like this. We were not able to take good pictures like this picture actually grabbed from the internet, but we did drove by and saw the lake looking like this. And Arhai Lake in Dali also has similar issue. Here is a kind of bird's eye picture of Arhai Lake. All these are fishermen who used to be fishermen collecting water chestnut. So you can see how bad the pollution is. And here is a map of Arhai Lake, where you have the city here. The place we stayed called Xizhou with the students is a more rural area. So Arhai Lake is a really major water resource for the whole area. On the west side of it is the Tangshan Mountain, which is kind of the last little bit of the, what do you call that, the Himalayas. So there are like 19 peaks at the Tangshan Mountain with 18 streams flowing into the Arhai Lake, creating this really nice and fertile agricultural plain, kind of flatland for agriculture. It's very important for the economy in terms of the water resources they have, all these tributaries that flows into Arhai Lake, all these villages living here. But at the same time, Arhai is also experiencing major eutrophication situation like this. According to the CCTV, which is not Central Surveillance, the Central Television of China, their estimation of the water pollution sources for Arhai Lake, they think that 40% is from livestock manure, 35% from garbage, from kind of everyday life garbage, 20% is from agriculture, and 5% from other sources. It's really hard to find an academic source or paper about the water pollution sources because it's such a sensitive topic. The government really don't want you to do too much research into that and make them look really bad. So this is one of the only kind of data I could find in terms of the water pollution. So the countermeasures the government came up with to try to clean up Arhai. But I want to say that please don't quote us on these countermeasures because they change all the time. And these are what the information we got from talking to the local people who are affected by these countermeasures. A lot of them were really angry. So sometimes numbers and things change based on who we're talking to. So I wouldn't call it a complete list of countermeasures, but these are what we learned from talking to the local people. The first two kind of doesn't matter. It's all official. This is what you should do when you are having problem with people's like raw sewer flowing into the lake. So the new wastewater treatment plants they were building, the new sewer systems they were putting in those main villages. These are really good policies to have, but at the same time there are some other very forbidding policies, really strict ones, are really affecting people's livelihood there. For example, they require that 30-meter buffer from the Arhai Lake and its main tributaries. There should be no building and no structure at all except necessary public infrastructures. Meaning anything, people's houses, people's places, that if they were within 30 meters, they have to be demolished. Shouldn't be any building or structure exist there. And then within 100 meters buffer from the Arhai Lake, there should be no new construction allowed. So what's there is going to be staying there, but you cannot build anything new. And within 200 meters buffer, there should be no commercial activities. And that's one of the main things that's affecting people, because if you know a little bit about Dali, this is the place that people would like to kind of dream of going if they want to escape from the stressful urban life, and they might just quit their job and buy a piece of small property, turn it into guest houses and stay there. This is a place very relaxing, really rural, nice mountains and lake, a new lifestyle for young people. And a lot of people being affected by this because after they spend their lifetime saving into buying this property and invested in turning it into a guest houses, now they cannot open it because any commercial activities is not allowed all of a sudden, which they did not foresee before the policy just suddenly came out.
So I think it's important to mention there, Leo, that you touched on it, but to be clear that like this isn't an area that's undeveloped now and people want to develop. It's an area that is highly developed and the government is shutting businesses down and closing them.
Yes.
So that there's no commercial activities within 200 meters of the lake.
Right. It's not saying like no new commercial activities.
Well, it's saying that.
It's like all of existing ones has to be shut down.
All the existing and no new. It's right, but it's not so they're actively closing things.
Yes. So that's why when we were talking to people, we met a lot of angry people who really have no idea what they're going to do with the investment they've already put in those guest houses and structures. Another very controversial one is that for the whole Arhai Lake, fishing is completely banned. That is a major change for some fishing islands that for people, all they knew for their whole life, what they knew to do is fishing. Now, all of a sudden, when fishermen can no longer fish, what are they going to do? What are they going to become? That was also one of the site, an island, the students visited and explored, kind of try to find out what kind of things they are doing now. There are many others. So I'm not gonna list all of them. Here are a couple pictures of the sewer systems being put in the existing streets and existing villages and towns. And here's a picture of a guest house being closed by the government because of the policies that they very strict. This very strict policy. Just nobody can do any commercial within that site. I think they have a couple years to work on that, so they're closing down one by one. So people are really feeling really lost now, what to do. And then in terms of that fishing village, here is a aerial picture of the Jinso Island, which is the fishing island. Obviously, the picture is nicely touched. The water is not as blue as the picture. But the first thing you notice that there's no ship or boat at all throughout the whole island, just not at all, because fishing is banned. All the ships they cannot really have, and a lot of them actually have to sink the boat at the bottom of the lake. Here is another picture of them doing fishing. It's a kind of tradition for them to use cormorants to fish for them. That's also a very interesting thing. So when the students were visiting that, we were trying to figure out, since they can no longer fish, what they're doing. The answer was quite clear. They just turned everything, they kind of turned towards tourism, because the fishing lifestyle for a lot of people is very rare. It's very new. They've never been living like that. So they turned the fishing practice into things that people could see, kind of experience. And also there is this cave on the island that shows very profound karst landscape, and they turned that into one of the main kind of tourist attraction to get people there. We were in there. It was really nice in terms of landscape, but I don't really particularly agree with all the colorful lights they shed on those. It's kind of I wasn't really enjoying all those lights, but the landscape itself is really interesting. And when they see something kind of from the shape, and they kind of create stories. Trying to make it a tourist attraction, which for me, I think they were trying their best, trying to get the people on the island to visit them. And within that cave, they also have this performance of young people showing the visitors, the audience, how the fishing life was like before. A lot of these young people haven't really been a real fisherman because of the policies, and now they can only experience that as a kind of performance there. And as visitors, if you pay a little bit fee, you can learn from the older ladies there. Here's a picture that I grabbed from the internet, from their website, their tourist website, that you can learn how to make a fishing net. Or you can watch them, how they give you a little insight, kind of highlight of how they use the cormorant to do fishing. So all these are their adjustment to the new policies and transitions of the of the environment because of the environmental challenges that they're experiencing. That's a major different kind of change for their lifestyle. And if we revisit this pie chart, a lot of people are arguing that the guest house operation and the fisherman operation, they may be just part of the 5% of the others. And why a lot of policies are actually very strict on them. Other than the raw sewer, the garbage, they are working on a lot on that. How about agriculture runoff? Are they putting on more policy in terms of reducing the amount of pesticide, herbicide that they use in agriculture? Or are they doing anything in other that are making more significant contribution to the water pollution there? So one of the things we looked at was agriculture. And one thing about Yunnan province is that they are a main province that produce tobacco. They're still planting tobacco. So on the height of this water pollution in Erhai Lake is their strategic plan to favor tobacco planting farms, that they actually pay subsidies for the farmers to grow tobacco instead of crops. So here is a map of their strategic plan for tobacco growing. If you look at all these, the location of these main areas where they grow tobacco are along major tributaries that flow into Erhai Lake. But we never really heard any policies about improving their practice. These have to be a major contributor to the water pollution in Erhai Lake. But somehow we never really came across the policies regarding the practice they are doing on tobacco planting. And we talked to a few farmers, tobacco farmers, and they actually switched from crop farming to tobacco farming because the government subsidies provided, they are actually going to make more money than planting crops. So we went to visit a few and we talked to them, and here are a few pictures. Here are, I don't know what they are, but this is a mixture that they make from these chemicals and this is a kind of drinking bottles of some ingredients, whatever they have. I'm not really good at that, but they mix everything up and they put all these on the top section of the plant to stop the top section from growing, because the best leaves are at the bottom of that plant. So they're really careless in terms of handling the chemicals. A lot of them they use drinking water bottle. And when we were talking to some NGOs, they actually, when the bottle cap is really tight, instead of using a tool, they just use their mouth and teeth to bite on it and twist open the cap of the bottle. So in terms of usage, it's not only careless handling of chemical that could go into soil contamination, but also the health issue is a main concern that a lot of NGOs are working on. Here is a farmer that we ran into for spraying pesticide on the crops. He was wearing some kind of special kind of pants, but he was completely exposed to the pesticide except for the pants part. He was wearing short sleeves. He doesn't have any protection gears. And if it's zooming on his feet, he was wearing slippers and was completely covered in the pesticide. And when we were talking to him, he didn't really care. I said, don't you worry about your feet and your health? He said, I do that all the time. And that made us kind of ask them a question that, do you do physical exams every single year? And of the several farmers we visited, they gave us really different answers. One of them said, yeah, of course I do physical exams every year. I said, what kind of exams do you do? And she said, everything. Which makes me believe maybe not so much. Mm-hmm. And all the others just said they've never done physical exams at all. So the health issue of the farmers on top of the soil contamination from agriculture is what we observe to be a serious issue for that community, instead of the guest houses opening a commercial business or fishermen fishing in our Erhai Lake. And then other than observation, and we also connect with the local NGOs, trying to figure out what they were doing. Because most of the environmental policies, if you know about Chinese governance structure, is that it's very top down. Everything comes from the top, and it has to be implemented and followed strictly by throughout the hierarchy of governance. But there was also a growth of movement of NGOs who are working kind of bottom up, grassroots. Some of them are small ones. Some of them are actually international NGOs that went into China trying to work on something. So one of the connections we made was the TNC, the Nature Conservancy. That this is international one, is a very well-known one and has been very successful in many other countries using their model of working with the environment. But coming to China is very different for them. When we were talking to them, they said in China, you cannot really buy a piece of land and improve the situation of quality of the piece of land and then turn it back to the government, because in China, all land is theoretically publicly owned. You just cannot purchase that. So they had to change the model and work with the county government, the local government very closely. Instead of purchasing a piece of land, they most likely gonna lease a piece of land for a certain amount of years and work on that project. But usually towards the end, they really don't know what to do, because that project is going to turn back to the government, and they don't know the government is going to continue with the projects that they have improved. So here's one of the example of the wetland project that it used to be very contaminated because of littering and wastewater and garbage that people put right into the wetland. So here's the location of the wetlands. Somehow cannot find high resolution maps on the website, on the internet. And the pictures they sent us were also relatively low resolution. One of the issues with the wetland is that it cannot have that piece of land, whether by purchasing or leasing, and then chase people, kind of move people out of that piece of land, and then only focus on that environment, on that piece of land, as they usually do in other countries. Here in China, these people, these projects, they actually are surrounded by villages. People are living right by or within the projects. And in the case of wetlands, it's actually their main water source of some kind of pond where the people in these villages gets their fresh water from. So another difference of NGOs working in China is they actually have to work with the local communities and figure out a way how this project could benefit and improve the living condition of the communities living nearby or right in it. So we went to visit this wetland project. The length of the project, the lease they had with the government was 3 years, which ended this past March. So they have to hand over to the government, and they really don't know what's going to happen. But when they got the land 3 years ago, it was a mess. It was really dirty, and it was not functioning at all as a wetland. But now it's been improved to a situation that's very functioning very well, and the community is very happy with it. That there's this wetland is also very important because it is right on the way of the winter migration route of many waterfowls. One of the famous ones is this. What is it called? I think in Chinese it's called kind of purple water chicken, but I think the official name might be swamp hen. I'm not an expert on that, but they're really beautiful. There are the biodiversity on this wetland is phenomenal. Here is me looking into a spotting scope, which is a savior because I can never find a bird in a pair of binoculars. But the spotting scope is really helpful. And here's the project manager, Miss Lee, who came to talk to the students about what they did with the project. We also had a breakout session discussion with the students mostly to work on problems like how to work with local government, how different it is to work with the government in China. So NGOs like these, they have been doing really amazing work because I think because of the experiences they have and the ability for them to have a really good relationship with the government. There are many other smaller NGOs, kind of grassroots NGOs, that the size is no more than 10, 12, 15 people, but they focus on a lot of very specific issues and are able to work with people on day-to-day basis. For example, this one we had who came to talk to the students is called PEAK, Pesticide Eco Alternative Center. This is the group that mainly focus on working with women on how to use pesticide in the field, how to potentially reduce the amount of pesticide and how to use them with protection gears and in a more safe way. They're working with women mostly because their function within the family is profound and their health is very important. So their work is also very interesting, and the students learned a lot from them. Well, we visited the Kunming Institute of Botany, where we met the postdoc scholar who found the bacteria that eats plastic. So this is us looking into his dish of the plastic that's kind of being eaten away, has been just a little bit left, which was also very eye-opening. A lot of people working on many different projects. This is an artist, I would call him environmental artist. He had a PhD in chemistry from the best university in China, the Tsinghua University, but he found his passion in arts. This is one of his projects that he traced one of the main tributary that flows into Dianchi Lake and took soil sample from the origin all the way into the mouth when it goes into the Dianchi Lake, and then he put all these soil sample in a kind of cubic shaped container that turned the horizontal soil sample into a vertical one, so you can see from the bottom to the top how the soil sample changed as a river flow across different landscapes and flow into the lake, which for me is very interesting. I call it a tiramisu cake, but it's a very interesting project, and he's been doing a lot of projects like this to increase increase people's awareness about environmental issues. Here is another example of what we visited. It's a nature school that a lot of urban kids no longer have really close contact with the rural lifestyle. So these are more kind of extracurricular activities and programs they put together for students, elementary, secondary school students, to have a experience of the nature. Raise a chicken and play with the chicken, and camping and exploring caves. That the place they have had interesting caves where the karst landscape was pretty common. And here's a project they have that was specially designed with different stages of plants and using gravity to have water from their toilet, from their restroom, that the water flows through the whole system, and towards the end the water is clean enough for irrigation, which is for a little garden that they keep. So that project is also very educational for students who visit this nature school. So we did a lot of things with the students, and there's a lot to look at in China in terms of environmental issues and potential solutions, especially when we look at the difference between the problems that Yunnan has and difference with the problems of the other parts of China have. It's very interesting to have the students be there, explore it, and understand the situation there. I think that's all I have. I've been talking a lot. You want to go ahead and show so these are these are my observation of the environmental transitions and transformations we had in China. So Curtis will go ahead and talk about the a Adobe Spark project he put together that highlights what the students have been doing. Let me put back the share. Screen share. Okay, right here. This one. The one, the main one. All right. Okay. You wanna go
Somebody
ahead?
had a message to us.
Yeah, it's Benji's message.
There was a second one.
It's also Benji's.
Oh, okay.
All right, let's go ahead, and here is a.
Okay. Well, so that was a bit about the environmental transitions and transformations, some of the challenges that China is wrestling with at the moment, and that we observed and experienced while on the Middlebury School of the Environment. And now I have some information about that program and kind of the student experience and how we undertake exploration of those environmental challenges with students when we're in China. This is an image of students on top of one of those karst pinnacles overlooking the city of Kunming on what's translated as
Snake Mountain.
Snake Mountain or Long Worm Mountain.
Long worm in Chinese means snake.
And so you can see, you know, the kind of rapid urban development that is occurring in parts of China. This is the city of Kunming, where the program is based for its final 4 weeks, or final 3 weeks. And this also was a link that was sent to you all in the email about this webinar. So you can follow along on your own and send it to other friends and family members and friends at school or faculty members. So in this past summer, we had 19 students representing 9 different countries and from 10 different sending institutions. So while the Middlebury School of the Environment is run through Middlebury College, it is not a program that is exclusive to Middlebury students. So we had students from colleges and universities all over the United States and from many different countries. And here are some students at a Benzu temple along the shore of Lake Erhai. Benzu is the word that describes kind of a wide variety of local religions that are mostly kind of ancestral worship. So worshiping family members and important people in the community from a long time ago, as opposed to worshiping gods or something like that. It's real people that did good things. More students kind of overlooking the urban landscape of Kunming. They're practicing their skills at drawing social ecological systems, understanding their relationship between the natural and built environment, as well as among social, economic, political, and cultural components of the environment. This is Molly, a student from Guilford College, who was working on a project where she was documenting the way that different earth materials, stones and rock and soil and mud were used as building materials. She's a geology student, and so that was how she kind of bridged her geology studies with cultural studies in China. I'm going to scroll through a couple other pictures of students doing neat things. Here's the full group of students that we had in China last summer on a final field trip where we had climbed a mountain. Say that again, Leah?
I forgot to record it.
So we have several different faculty members on the program representing a diverse group of disciplines. So, you know, Leo and I are both environmental planners and geographer types. We typically have a geologist or a physical scientist who focuses on geology or environmental chemistry, pollution and pollution fate on the program. Holly in the upper left-hand corner is a geologist from Guilford College. In the center on the top row is Joe Witt, who is a religious studies scholar from Mississippi State. who teaches classes in environmental ethics and religious studies. In that upper right picture, Christine Stracey is a conservation biologist and ornithologist. We also have a documentary filmmaker, Joan Grossman, with us on the program. So it's a pretty wide variety of faculty members, and our goal is to use those diverse disciplines to tackle environmental problem solving from lots of different angles, and to supply our students with a wide variety of skills and methodologies from different disciplines to understand how different disciplines come together to address environmental issues. So some of our core pedagogical goals are to embed teaching and learning in place. So it's an exploration of place, and we seek to understand place from different disciplinary perspectives: geology, environmental chemistry, environmental planning, religious studies. It's a field-based experiential program, so we don't spend a lot of time in classrooms. Most of our time is spent in the field. Classes happen outside, sometimes in little cafes or restaurants, sometimes in the middle of a market, sometimes maybe in a wetland or on the side of a mountain. Here, Benji is at the Kunming Institute of, I'm sorry, Jay is at the Kunming Institute of Botany, where we're talking about the importance of seed banks in storing seeds and the genetic stock of plant material, so that we retain that genetic code through the impacts of climate change, or the genetic code endures through the impacts of climate change, so that we're not losing biodiversity. And there's also a leadership component of the program, in which we have lots of different leadership workshops and professional skill development workshops, and bring in practitioners to teach those, helping students develop their personal theory of leadership and elaborate on their personal principles of leadership, as well as practice leadership skills like environmental conflict management and collaboration, environmental planning and organizational management skills that are important for when you're working in the environmental field. As I mentioned, most classes take place not in the classroom, but out in the field. Here, students were at another Benzu temple. They were singing songs with some of the women at the temple who were there cleaning the temple and having lunch. Here we have students out in the field climbing a mountain trying to get selfies as they overlooked a kind of 3,000-foot drop into the canyon below. This was part of environmental analysis class, which is a science class where we bring together the methodologies from lots of different disciplines to tackle environmental problem solving.
A good thing for me to have heart attack.
And then our third course is understanding place, which in some ways is about trying to make the invisible characteristics of a place, or the invisible things that give a place its placeness, visible. What's happening behind the scenes? What are the social networks and the values and the norms that make a place special? Here, Ra is doing an interview with a village elder in Shizuo, who is an antique dealer, telling lots of stories about growing up in Shizuo, and then telling stories about the different antiques that he was selling. And then we bring in lots of practitioners from a wide variety of environmental professions to give presentations. This is Kathleen Walsh from the Gates Foundation, the Gates Foundation's office in China, visiting us at the Linden Center and talking about international philanthropy and how international NGOs like the Gates Foundation adapt to working in China. Another of those workshops that was part of the program last year was persuasive speaking, and kind of how to command an audience when giving presentations. And so the gentleman that's leading the workshop here is Mike Kiernan. We brought him over from the United States. He's a political consultant that works with pretty high-profile political candidates and folks in office, helping them develop their skills at public speaking and debate. And he's helping a student here who is a bit shy when it comes to public speaking, kind of feel like she was in more control of the audience. You can see over here on the left-hand side of the screen the living environment of Shizo. So this is where the students at the Linden Center live. So we live in this traditional courtyard. Some classes happen here in the courtyard. Meals are served in the courtyard, and the dormitories or the rooms where students stay are kind of in these different rooms on the upper and lower parts of the balcony there. That bottom picture in the string there is the Shizo morning market, where students love to go exploring and shopping. As I mentioned, Joan Grossman is a documentary filmmaker, an environmental filmmaker, who does both documentaries and narrative and art films. So we bring a pretty extensive filmmaking kit with us. And students make films throughout the 6-week program, and also lead a 48-hour video making program where students are paired up with community members from Shizo to make short films about the community. So here our students are learning the craft from Joan, as well as documenting some of the experiences in class. And then that 48-hour film festival is capped off with a film showing. So our students and the community partners that they were paired with got together to watch those films one night. That was a lot of fun. This is a workshop presented by the Nature Conservancy in China, who are describing the conservation biology techniques and the management of the wetland area that Leo described in her portion of the presentation. So here we're learning about the Nature Conservancy's conservation planning framework. And on a field trip to that wetland, doing lots of birding. Here students are working at a tea plantation for the day and learning the craft of tea making. And then, as Leo mentioned, she talked about the Jinso Island fishing village, where fishing has been banned while the fish populations and water quality issues are restored. So here, Jay is practicing his fishing net making skills with a woman from the community. This is a pretty tedious and difficult task that I do not have the patience for, I learned. But it's really interesting to be here on the island, which is a resource-dependent community, entirely dependent on fish populations and the success of their fishing efforts for their income and food supply. But now fishing has been banned for all but 15 days of the year. And so it's a fishing village now kind of in name only, although in name and memory only. And the only way that fishing is experienced on the island now, other than for 15 days, is through tourism, like what you see Jay doing here, and the dance performance that memorializes the legacy of fishing in the community. So it's a pretty interesting place to be, thinking about sustainable industries and the governance of environmental problems. Students are working on a wetlands project here, kind of exploring wetland delineation and wetland function on the shores of Lake Erhai. Here we are at yet another Benzu temple, learning about the intersection of Benzu worship and environmentalism, which are closely connected, especially around water resources. We were able to experience a concert of traditional Bai musicians playing on traditional instruments. It was pretty exciting, and talk with some village elders. And then we transition to Kunming. So we move from the rural context of the village to the city center, It's about a 4-hour train ride or a 7-hour bus trip. And it's neat to do a kind of comparison of environmental issues in the countryside versus the urban issues of Kunming. It's our 4th week in the program here, and the first time that we were in any space that resembled a classroom at all. For some people, it was kind of comforting to be in a place that looked familiar. Here, Caroline is at the Kunming Institute of Botany Seed Bank, and she's kind of documenting the bank of seeds that are being stored to save that genetic code to make sure it's not lost to the impacts of climate change. So you can see the biodiversity of Yunnan province right before your eyes in these kind of the seeds embedded in the cones here. And then a big piece of the program is that we work closely with an organization called Planet Forward, which is a digital media group from Washington, D.C., associated with George Washington University. Dan Reed, who's giving the presentation here, is a digital media specialist who comes and helps students on the Middlebury School of the Environment transform what they're learning in their classes and field experience into digital media stories, podcasts, written pieces, documentary videos that are then Adobe Sparks like this one that are then hosted on Planet Forward's digital media platform and published all over the world. So Planet Forward is run by Frank Sesno, who's a retired CNN correspondent. And his passion now is helping undergraduate students propel their digital environmental storytelling to the next level and get some pretty high profile press for that. So Planet Forward comes on our program and helps our students elevate their writing and their digital media work to the next level. Holly here in the hat with the sunglasses is giving a presentation on that karst landscape. She's our geologist from Guilford College. Here Raquel is looking at this water filtration living machine constructed at the nature camp that we visited. I'm scrolling a little bit faster here. A presentation here by Xinhao Cheng, who's a local environmental artist who kind of works on the fringe of environmental chemistry and geology and digital photography and video making. So we had a lecture from him at a local coffee shop and then went in the field with him the next day to see the sites where he was inspired to create his work. And then at the end of our program, or over the course of the 6 weeks, students are working on a large kind of culminating project in which they coalesce and crystallize their learning from all their different classes into a summative project that displays all of their work in a nice, tight kind of portfolio. So one student, Charlotte Massey, who is an art major at Middlebury College, created an art showing. So she did a series of watercolor paintings on postcards in which she made her own paint out of local food items. She kind of created these dyes and paints that are in the pictures here. And she then used what she learned in classes both as inspiration for the pictures and to then also kind of document the social ecological systems that she was trying to portray in each picture in a written piece that she created. Other students created videos, written papers, scholarly papers, as well as Adobe Sparks. Here, Lena created an art book, was kind of a kind of sculpture or kind of book that she unpacked, like a pop-up book that described different experiences that she had along the way.
Well, when the book is closed, that's her idea. When the book is closed, it resembles a temple, like a Benju temple. But when it's open, it resembles a lotus flower, which is a main thing for the Chinese religion.
And so, you know, the program offers 9 course credits. that transfer back to your home institution, or if you're a Middlebury student, counts as 3 Middlebury courses. Our dates for the summer are June 7th to July 19th. The application is up and on the Middlebury School of the Environment website, and there's a link here on the presentation. And we would love to have you all apply for the program and hopefully be with us in China next summer. And with that, I think we're ready to open it up to questions if anybody has any.
Let me go ahead and unmute everyone. Okay.
Benji, if you want to describe anything that we missed from your experience last summer, that'd be great.
Let me unmute Benji.
We're also right up against 2 o'clock, so if everybody has to run to get to class, that's understandable too.
Where can I unmute it? Benji, can you just unmute yourself?
Try unmute. Oh, they are unmuted.
I did, but it's not working. The chat. Okay. Oh, thank you.
What if you click unmute all at the bottom?
Unmute all. Benji's still muted.
Well,
Benji,
he's muted on his computer.
did you mute yourself?
It's okay.
Oh, it is. Chat. I'm in a jazz class. Okay. Thank you for the support, Benji. You cannot talk. Okay, that's fine. Can I have your name, please? Who's Afi? It's hard to tell the name.
Yeah.
Ross, do you have any questions or comments?
No, I need to run to class also, actually.
All right.
Nobody can talk. That's fine, so we don't have any questions to answer. Yeah.
All right. Well, no problem. We thank you all for joining. And if you do have questions,
Aline.
please email. We're happy to answer your questions and would love to see you in China next June.
Okay. Well, okay.
With that, we're going to stop the screen share and hope to talk to you all soon. Have a great rest of your day.
Oh, there's a question from Eileen that she's wondering if the faculty that were there last year will be back this year.
Eileen, our faculty tend to change each year depending on what they have going on. So many of our faculty have been returning year after year, but have other, research projects and other teaching obligations. And so there's always some change. And so we don't know exactly who's with us next year, and we'll know that, usually by early January or so, we tend to start locking that in. But we always have a pretty wide variety of interdisciplinary faculty that come at environmental problem solving from many different angles. Is there a particular field or discipline that you're interested in? We absolutely will have media, and Planet Forward will be with us for 2 weeks next summer. Not only last year they were with us for 1, but this summer will be with us for 2 weeks. And Joan, our filmmaker, should be with us next summer also. So we'll absolutely be doing the environmental media portion.
Yes, the documentary filmmaker will be with us. Yeah, I think that's a really interesting piece of the program, is to be able to explore and document. Yeah. And by documenting, you're actually communicating with a lot of people about what you have observed, which is a really interesting, inspiring part of the program too. And
also, Aileen, if you are interested in media production and environmental storytelling, we have a special scholarship that might be just for you now. So if you go onto the application page, and maybe you've already started, or you have already started your application, as you look through the application, there's an essay at the bottom, an optional essay, that if you write that essay, that puts you in competition for a new scholarship through Planet Forward at George Washington University that is only for students that do environmental storytelling and environmental media work. So you should absolutely apply for that scholarship. Are you a Planet Forward correspondent now?
No.
So you might also want to look at Planet Forward. Even if your home institution is not engaged with Planet Forward, you can still become a Planet Forward correspondent, which is a very cool program, and you might want to look into if that's something you're interested in. I think planetforward.org is their website at George Washington, and it's a really cool program.
Okay, cool. Any other question before we close?
Lovely.
You're welcome.
Well, thanks a lot, everybody. We really appreciate you joining, and please let us know if you have questions.
Cool. I'm gonna stop recording.